She stared at the torn wedding photo, not with anger, but a chilling calm. The edges were frayed, corners yellowing where sunlight once clung to hope. She didn't touch it, just let her gaze drift from the paper to the city below, where the skyline stretched like a forest of unspoken ambitions. The air was still, muffled by the thick autumn glass. Behind her, Lillian waited silently by the door, unsure if now was the time to speak. Elena's hand finally moved, not to retrieve the photo, but to push it off the edge of her desk with the gentlest flick. It fluttered downward, disappeared. 5 years ago, she had whispered into a November rainstorm, soaked to the bone, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, "One day, I'll return, and no one will dare call me left behind again." No one had heard her then. But now, silence listened. Lillian cleared her throat softly. "The final guest list is in, ma'am." Elena turned in her chair. Nodding once, Lillian approached, handed her the thick dossier, and retreated with professional grace. The pages smelled of toner and expensive linen stock. Elena flipped past the investors, too familiar. Past donors, artists, foreign partners. Then, under Media Coordination Team, a name jumped, not with the shock of recognition, but with the cold inevitability of rot beneath polished marble. Nathan Blake. She read it twice, once as a professional, again as the woman who'd once signed his name beside hers on a marriage license and a miscarriage form. There was no change in her face, only a slight shift in her posture, as if the building itself had leaned forward to hear her reaction. The door opened without a knock, only the soft shuffle of Italian leather soles. Daniel Carter never knocked, not when it came to her. Not anymore. "You saw it?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. He stepped beside her, not touching, just watching the name burn into the air between them. "You don't have to face him if you're not ready." Elena didn't flinch. Her voice was even, her gaze steady. "I've been ready for 5 years." Daniel placed a hand on the back of her chair, not possessive, but anchoring. "You built this empire, Elena. Don't let a ghost think it can rattle the foundation." She gave a half smile. "Ghosts don't rattle foundations. They haunt the ones who built nothing." He leaned in, kissed her temple, and left without another word. The moment the door clicked shut, she stood. Her heels clicked across the marble as she approached the wall-mounted touchpad. One tap, then biometric scan. The screen shimmered. She typed Phoenix Protocol into the encrypted search bar. A single file appeared, dated June 2018. Title: Red Phoenix, Founder's Draft. She opened it slowly, reverently. The first slide was crude, messy, but it was hers. All of it, every algorithm, every visualization, every user behavior map, etched by sleepless nights and survival instinct. At the bottom, an old signature. Elena Moore. She stared at it. That name, the one she left behind when she married Daniel. When she reinvented herself. When she stopped apologizing for dreaming. Back then, Nathan said her proposal was too ambitious. That no woman should leap before the market is even real. But the file said otherwise. It screamed otherwise. And now it would speak again, louder than ever. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Instead, she reached for her phone. She called Lillian, her voice precise, cool as glass. "Schedule a private meeting with legal. No assistance. This is personal." "Mama, why doesn't my last name match yours or Daddy's?" Maddie asked, drawing butterflies on the window fog. The question floated in the chilled car air, as soft as the mist she traced. But it hit Elena like a stone to the ribs. She didn't answer right away. Outside, Queens passed in slow motion. Rows of modest brick homes. Trees shedding their final leaves. The sidewalk they once trudged in cheaper shoes and heavier silence. Elena forced a smile into the rearview mirror. "Because your name is yours. Darling, it's special." Maddie nodded, distracted by the wing of her next butterfly. They stopped in front of an old 3-story building, white paint chipped. The same dented mailbox from years ago still leaning sideways. The past hadn't been repainted. Elena stepped out, her boots crunching on brittle leaves. She held Maddie's hand as they climbed the familiar stoop. A moment later, the door creaked open. "Elena?" Mrs. Bryant blinked behind bifocals, hand still on the chain lock. "It's been a while," Elena said, her voice gentler than it was in boardrooms. Mrs. Bryant undid the lock. "Child, you look like money now. Come in." Inside, The furniture hadn't changed. The same faded Afghan on the couch. The faint scent of lavender and Clorox. Maddie tiptoed toward the cat curled on the rug while Elena followed Mrs. Bryant into the kitchen. "You here for that box you stored in my closet?" she asked. "Pouring tea without asking." Elena nodded. "And, to say thank you. I never did properly." Mrs. Bryant waved it off. "You said it plenty. Every night you didn't scream. You just hummed to that belly of yours like the world wasn't trying to break you." Elena's eyes fell to her cup. "I wasn't strong then. I was just surviving. You were stronger than most. He didn't come for you. Did he?" Elena didn't answer. She didn't need to. Mrs. Bryant reached beneath the table, pulling out a modest storage box, sealed. Labeled Red Phoenix, draft notes. The lid bore water stains from years of forgotten battles. Elena opened it. Notebooks, thumb drives, sketches on napkins. Her voice returned, quiet but anchored. "These are what I had when no one believed in me. Except the girl carrying dreams in one hand and a child in the other." Mrs. Bryant said, "I remember you." There was a long pause. Then, Mrs. Bryant looked to the hallway, her tone shifting. "One night, during the rain, someone stood outside your door. He didn't knock, he just cried. I watched from the peephole. He was drenched, shivering, didn't say a word, then he walked away." Elena's breath caught, but she exhaled before it became anything more. "Why didn't you tell me? I thought maybe you didn't want to know. Or maybe you already did." Elena picked up the box and pressed it close to her chest like an artifact of a former life. She stood slowly. "Thank you for keeping this. And for seeing me when I felt invisible." Mrs. Bryant touched her arm. "I didn't see you. You were just shining too damn hard for anyone to miss." As they walked back to the car, Maddie bounced beside her, oblivious to the ghosts trailing behind. Elena buckled her into the seat, placed the box on the passenger side, and turned the engine. Rain had started again, soft, insistent. From the back, Maddie asked again, "Was he my dad?" Elena's knuckles widened on the steering wheel. Nathan stops dead reading the gala invitation. "Chief guest, Elena Carter." His fingers trembled just enough to smear the ink on the corner of the thick, embossed cardstock. For a second, he wondered if this was some twisted mistake. But the name was printed in gold foil, centered in confident serif font. Elena Carter. Partner, chief guest. Investor Appreciation Gala. The silence in his shared office space was broken only by the muted hum of monitors. His heart beat faster than it had since his first client pitch. And his mouth had gone dry. She wasn't just around. She was the honored guest. And apparently, now a Carter. The last time he heard that name, Elena Moore, it had been screamed in a courthouse hallway. Barely audible through the rain. He didn't stay to watch her sign the final papers. He had Rachel waiting in the car. And a child she hadn't even asked him to raise. He looked up suddenly, as if someone might be watching. Then turned his monitor away and logged into the internal HR portal. The password failed once, then again. Finally, access. He navigated straight to the executive directory. There she was. Carter. Elena, partner, strategic growth and brand holdings. Her photo looked like a magazine cover, sleek ponytail. Navy dress. That unreadable expression. The kind that made men wonder if they should apologize for breathing wrong. He swallowed. Rachel's voice cut through his unraveling thoughts. "So you saw it too." He turned. She leaned against the frame of the office door. Arms crossed. Mouth set in a line that wasn't quite smug, more like vindicated. "You knew?" he asked. "I saw the list yesterday. Thought you might want to burn it yourself." He scoffed. Tried to reassert some old dominance. "It's just a PR move. She probably married some old money investor." Rachel tilted her head. "His name is Daniel Carter. CEO. Not old money, new empire. Your boss's boss." Nathan flinched. Rachel smiled. "A little too slow. She's not the same girl you left," she added, then walked away without waiting for a reply. He slumped into his chair. The room felt smaller. He hadn't imagined her for years, not really. Maybe in flashes, when Maddie would say something smart. Or when guilt hit hard after bourbon. But never like this. Never with power. Later that afternoon, he stepped into the hallway to grab coffee. And there he was, Daniel Carter. Crisp suit. Unreadable eyes. The kind of presence that quieted conversations just by proximity. They almost passed each other without a word. Almost. Daniel stopped. Nathan Blake? Nathan straightened. Mr. Carter. Yes. Daniel's tone was polite, voice smooth. Good to have someone with your background in the media department. Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Daniel studied him for half a beat longer than necessary. Then, with the faintest smile, he said, You once called her a burden. Funny how time flips the script. The room froze when she walked in, not because of her beauty, but because everyone knew who she used to be. Not the Elena Carter they'd read about in Forbes. Not the poised strategist in stilettos who now walked beside Daniel Carter in a black velvet gown. No, she had once been someone else. Someone whispered about. Someone some of them had judged, pitied, ignored. But now she made the chandeliers seem dimmer. The Paramount Hotel's rooftop ballroom shimmered under soft golden lighting. Music faded mid-bar as the crowd's attention shifted. Not by design, but by gravity. Elena's presence wasn't announced. It simply existed, unavoidable. Sovereign. Nathan saw her before Rachel did. He went pale, then turned pink, then somewhere in between. She's here, he muttered. Rachel followed his gaze. Her jaw didn't clench, but her hand did tighten around her clutch. Daniel escorted Elena across the floor. His touch light but declarative. No one missed it. Elena wasn't just his guest, she was his equal. The MC cleared his throat at the podium, attempting a semblance of order. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to welcome a woman whose impact on Carter Media goes beyond metrics and margins. He gestured. Daniel stepped forward, smile practiced, yet sincere. This company would not be what it is today without vision. And hers outpaced even my own. The applause wasn't just polite, it was loud, affirming, and Nathan wanted to vanish. She's earned this, Rachel whispered. We'll sit. He didn't argue, couldn't. Elena stepped onto the stage. The crowd quieted instantly. Cameras lowered, eyes widened. She held the microphone without rushing. I used to wonder what power looked like. She began. I thought it was in titles. Or silence. Or who got the last word in a fight. She let that hang. A few heads tilted. A few knew. But I've learned it's simpler. Power is what you build when no one's watching. When you've been written off. Somewhere near the back, someone murmured, That's her. She smiled, eyes sweeping the room. Some of us were thrown out in the rain. Others built empires from it. A collective stillness followed, the kind that demanded self-inventory. Elena didn't fill it with more. She let it breathe. Then, her gaze shifted, pinpointed. Nathan. He flinched. Elena's eyes locked onto Nathan's, and now. I return not for revenge, but recognition. A manila envelope is delivered to Nathan. Property rights. Elena Moore, 2018. He stared at it like it had teeth. The courier didn't say a word, just nodded and left. The envelope sat on his desk like a detonator. For a full minute, Nathan didn't move. He finally opened it with slow fingers, trying not to sweat through the collar of his shirt. Inside, a legal notice. Cease and desist. Attached. Digital forensic reports. Metadata signatures. A notarized affidavit from Caleb Tran. One line at the top sliced deeper than any lawyer's threat. Originating author. Elena Moore. Dated June 2018. His throat closed. He scanned the rest in a haze. The file structure mirrored his own presentations. His algorithms. His insights. Except they weren't. They'd never been. He had lifted pieces. Repackaged them. Called them inspiration. Or coincidence. Or just smart strategy. But Caleb's name, hell. Even Caleb's silence over the years, now turned against him. Elena had found him. And the timestamp files were digital fossils. Immutable. Damning. There was a knock. He looked up. Already sinking. It wasn't security. Worse. It was Harriet Go, Carter Media's head of legal. She walked in with 2 assistants. No greeting. And placed a hard copy on his desk beside the envelope. Nathan Blake, she said, you're being asked, formally, to cease all derivative use of the Phoenix framework and associated visuals. Nathan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Harriet continued. Your access to strategic planning folders has been temporarily revoked. IT will follow up shortly. I suggest full cooperation. You don't understand, he began. I understand perfectly. Harriet interrupted. We traced embedded code signatures. You didn't even scrub them. He tried to rise. She raised a finger. This isn't a trial. Yet. The room emptied as quickly as it filled. Nathan slumped. Undone. Meanwhile, in Daniel's corner office, Elena stood by the window, arms crossed. Her reflection in the glass looked almost serene. Daniel set his phone down. IT confirmed the lockout. Caleb's documents arrived encrypted and authenticated. It's solid. We won't sue, Elena said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Unless he drags us there. She clarified. I want to reclaim, not destroy. Daniel smiled faintly. You've changed. She didn't answer. Outside, the sky over Manhattan was bruising to indigo. Somewhere in the city, headlines were forming. Internal whispers would spread. People would take sides. She pulled out her phone and typed one line to a number she still had memorized. This isn't war. It's a return to the truth. Rachel sat across from Elena, fingers trembling, voice barely above a whisper. He never asked whose child it was. Rain tapped the cafe windows. A steady, soft percussion underscoring the tension. Rachel swallowed, eyes glued to her coffee cup, unwilling to meet Elena's gaze. Across the small Soho table, Elena's face was unreadable, cool and composed, though the air between them was electric with unspoken truths. Elena remembered Nathan's words vividly. Whatever's growing inside you, good luck with it. He'd said it in passing, offhandedly, as though the child were hers to claim or discard as she'd see fit. No promise, no concern, just indifference. Rachel inhaled. I wasn't pregnant when I married him, she confessed. Not with his child. Her voice cracked. I was already carrying someone else's. But Nathan needed an heir. A perfect little family. And I needed stability. Elena's mind raced. So that child, Maddie, could it be theirs? No. Too late. But the betrayal cut deeper now. Nathan had entered his marriage with a lie built in. That's why he never asked. Rachel continued. Why he never cared. He wanted the image, the name, not the truth. Elena clenched her hands beneath the table. You shouldn't have carried that alone. Her tone was quiet, but firm. Rachel shook her head. I needed the money, the apartment, the social standing. But once the baby came, he didn't see me. Only what I represented. Elena leaned forward, every inch the poised strategist. Tell me everything. Rachel nodded, tears pooling. When I told him, I said the child might not be his, he laughed. He said I was hysterical. He told me to file for divorce quietly. Sign over half. And carry on. A bitter laugh escaped Elena. So he did the same to me. Rachel looked up, grief and relief clashing in her expression. He never saw me. Elena. He never saw us. Elena's jaw tightened. The woman seated here, the betrayer turned pawn, had more in common with her than the vast gulf that once separated them. They sat in silence for a moment, the rain intensifying. Other patrons shifted in their seats. But neither woman cared. This moment was their reckoning. Finally Rachel spoke. He's going to lash out. Blame you for everything, his career, his marriage. Once this is public, he won't be subtle. Elena nodded slowly. I expected that, but the truth is stronger than his lies. Rachel looked down, voice soft. I tried to become you. Be the kind of woman he'd notice, the ambitious, driven Elena Carter, but he never saw me. That admission, a raw, fierce confession, cut through the tension. Elena stared at Rachel. There was empathy there, but also resolve. You won't be my ally. But you're no longer my enemy either. Her words landed between them with finality. They both exhaled, the decision unspoken but understood. Neither would step aside. But perhaps, for the first time, Rachel's loyalty and her testimony could shake Nathan's carefully constructed facade. Outside, the rain slowed. Inside Café Botanica, two women bound by betrayal, secrecy, and the promise of justice shared a moment of fragile alliance. The reporter's mic was already on. Mr. Blake, care to comment on being employed by your ex-wife's husband? Nathan blinked twice before recognizing the voice. Linda York, always 2 steps ahead of decorum. Always the one who caught men off guard with a smile and a scalpel. He glanced around. But the press lounge was deceptively sparse. A few camera operators tucked into corners and a softly humming espresso bar at the back. Casual enough to disarm. But the lighting? Too perfect. The cameras? Already rolling. Linda didn't let up. It's quite a unique arrangement. Ex-wife marries CEO. You joined the company. Did that come up in your interview process? Nathan's mouth tightened. I wasn't aware of her role at the time. Linda leaned in. That must have been a surprise. given the history. But the public's interested. Mr. Blake, especially in light of recent legal filings. His chest constricted. It's complicated. Care to simplify it for us? From the far side of the room, Daniel stood with his back to a velvet curtain, sipping his espresso like he had all the time in the world. Elena stood beside him, hands clasped loosely, gaze steady. She didn't look away. Daniel glanced over his cup and said quietly, "Now would be the time." Elena nodded once, then stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the polished floor like punctuation. Linda's attention shifted instantly. "Elena Carter." Linda greeted, surprised but delighted. "Would you like to comment?" Elena's expression didn't shift. She walked slowly to the center, between Linda and Nathan, but faced the camera directly. "The industry is built on talent," she said evenly, "and talent is priceless. But theft?" Her eyes flicked to Nathan for a single breath. "Theft has its receipts." A murmur went through the small crowd. Even Linda, unshakable as she was, looked momentarily stunned. "I believe in transformation," Elena continued, "but transformation begins with truth. And I no longer owe silence to anyone." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was reverent. The camera lights caught the faintest shimmer in her earrings. The exact moment Nathan looked down. Linda, without missing a beat, turned slightly, her mic now hidden by her clipboard. She leaned closer to Elena and whispered, "Wait till you see tomorrow's headline." Daniel cradled her hand without words, letting silence say what she never let herself hear. "You're safe now." They sat side by side on the penthouse terrace, the fog blurring out even the brightest of Midtown's lights. Below, the city moved on, unaware that for once, Elena Carter had no speech prepared, no strategy drawn, no retort waiting, just breath, just presence. Daniel broke the quiet, not with a question, but a story. "She died in autumn, too. My wife, Miriam, 3 years ago. Breast cancer. She never told anyone but me." Elena's eyes shifted toward him, brows drawn faintly. "She thought silence made her brave," he said, "but all it did was make her lonely." Elena turned her gaze back to the city, her voice low. "I used to think showing pain meant giving people a weapon. I didn't even cry when Maddie was born. I was too afraid it would mean I hadn't made it." Daniel shook his head. "You did make it. You just forgot you could put the armor down." She let out a broken laugh, wiping her cheek. "I still don't know how. Some days I feel like I'm just replaying the same battle. New suit, same scars." Daniel looked at her then, not with pity, but with something steadier. "Love doesn't make you soft. It makes you real. You survived by holding the world at bay. But now, you have someone who knocks and waits." A pause stretched, not heavy but full. Elena's voice cracked slightly. "You didn't save me. You reminded me I'd already survived." The moment held, no fireworks, no violins, just truth. It settled over them like the fog, quiet and undeniable. Her phone buzzed on the table, vibrating once, twice. She reached for it, thumb hesitating over the screen. The subject line chilled her spine. "Urgent, Nathan threatens to countersue. Legal brief attached." Nathan's keycard beeped red. A security guard murmured, "You're no longer authorized." He tried again, pressing harder, willing it to work. The beep repeated, louder, crueler in its finality. The sleek glass doors of Carter Media HQ didn't budge. People passed behind the guard. Heads turned discreetly. No one stopped. No one asked. He stepped back, face flushed. The guard didn't meet his eyes, just held a small clipboard. "Mr. Carter would like to see you now." Nathan followed him through a side entrance, past faces that wouldn't return his nods. Even the receptionist, usually chirpy, pretended to type harder. The boardroom was empty except for Daniel and a sleek black folder on the glass table. Daniel didn't rise. "You've read the coverage, I assume?" Nathan remained standing. "It's one-sided." Daniel opened the folder and pushed it across the table. "So was your marriage contract. You forfeited all derivative claims in 2018. You just didn't read the fine print." Nathan didn't touch it. Daniel continued, calm and cold. "You can resign quietly. Today. No press drama. No dragged-out lawsuits. But you'll issue a public statement, apology included. Otherwise, we press charges. And Elena's legal team won't miss." Nathan glanced at the envelope. A decade of arrogance caving under the weight of one misstep. "I built that pitch," he whispered. Daniel stood. "No, You pitched it. She built it. A pause. Then, with slow fingers, Nathan opened the envelope. There it was, his signature. June 2018, right under a clause that now read like a guillotine. An hour later, the paperwork was filed. HR escorted him out, quietly. But unmistakably. Cameras didn't follow. But stories would. That night, Elena sat curled with Maddie on the couch. Soft blanket over their knees. The TV played quietly in the background, a business segment flashing Nathan's name. Maddie pointed. Is that man the reason you cried before bedtime? In Central Park, Maddie ran ahead, laughing. For once, there were no shadows behind them. The trees had turned their richest shade of gold, fluttering like coins cast into a wishing well. Elena watched her daughter leap between patches of light, arms spread as if she could catch the sky itself. Daniel caught up, thermos in hand. You sure about today? She nodded. It's not about telling the world. It's about telling myself, and letting her see. He smiled but didn't reply. From his coat pocket, he pulled a small envelope. This came from him. Elena hesitated. The envelope bore no return address. Just her name in familiar, hesitant handwriting. She opened it quietly. Inside was a folded drawing, Maddie's. From years ago. Crayon scribbled butterflies. A house. A little girl with pigtails. It had been sent anonymously. One rainy Christmas, and never acknowledged. Tucked behind the drawing, a note. A few sentences. Apology without defense. Regret without rewriting history. She refolded it. He's not our villain, she murmured. Just, unfinished. Later that afternoon, Elena stood before a sea of women at the annual Women in Tech conference. Spotlights warmed the stage, but she didn't flinch. Her keynote wasn't rehearsed, it didn't need to be. There will be people who try to define you by what you survived. She began. Let them. Then redefine yourself. She told no sob story. Only truth. She didn't name Nathan. She didn't need to. She named resilience, idea ownership, the dignity of rebuilding without begging for scraps. You are not what they left behind. She ended. You are what rose anyway. The applause surged, not for pity, but power. Back in Central Park, the sun dipped low. Maddie tugged at her sleeve. Can I change my name? She asked. Elena crouched down, brushing a leaf from her daughter's hair. To what? Love? Maddie beamed. To more. Like my mother. The woman once cast aside under stormy skies now stood beneath sunlight of her own making. What was stolen had not only been reclaimed, it had been redefined. Reshaped into something stronger than vengeance. Legacy. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Truth does not chase applause, it simply waits, unshaken, until the lies collapse. And sometimes, the quietest victories carry the loudest lessons.